There is a quiet kind of suffering that many people carry without even noticing. It is not the pain of an open wound or the grief of a great loss. It is the constant tension of holding on, gripping life so tightly that our hands, our minds, and our hearts grow weary. We clutch at our relationships, fearing they will slip away. We grasp at possessions, believing they will protect us from uncertainty. We cling to our ideas about who we are, afraid that without them we will vanish into nothingness. And yet, in the very act of holding on, we create the very suffering we wish to avoid. The problem is not that we want things to be good. The problem is that we try to freeze life, to lock it into place, to make it remain exactly as it is when it feels safe or pleasant. We believe that if we can just hold on tightly enough, we can keep what we love from changing. But life does not work that way. It moves, it flows, it transforms. Nothing can be pinned down. Everything we hold will, sooner or later, shift in our hands. When we forget this truth, we turn our own grasp into chains. Many people hear the phrase, letting go, and misunderstand it completely. They imagine it means giving up, abandoning what matters, or turning cold toward the world. They think of it as a kind of failure, a sign of weakness or lack of commitment. If I let go, they think, it means I don't care anymore. But letting go is not abandoning. It is not a rejection of life. It is not a denial of love. Letting go is the release of the tight fist. It is the untying of the knot in the heart. It is the act of opening our hands so that life can rest there naturally, without force or control. When you let go, you do not lose what is real. You lose the illusion that you could control it. You lose the tension that has been exhausting you for years. You lose the fear of change, because you begin to see that change is not your enemy. It is simply the nature of existence. You discover that love can exist without possession, that joy can arise without holding it in place, and that peace does not come from controlling the storm, but from stepping out of it. Imagine holding a rope in your hands while someone is pulling from the other end. At first, you think you must grip it tightly to keep from falling. But after a while, the rope begins to burn your palms. The harder you hold, the deeper the pain cuts into your skin. Finally, when the pain becomes too much, you let go, not because you have stopped caring, but because you realize that holding on is causing harm. The relief is immediate. The burning stops. Your hands can heal. That is what true letting go feels like. This teaching about letting go is not about running away from responsibility or from life itself. In fact, it allows us to engage more fully. When we are no longer obsessed with controlling every outcome, we can respond to life with a clear mind and an open heart. We can care for others without trying to own them. We can enjoy the beauty of a moment without fearing its end. We can even face difficulties without the added burden of resistance. Letting go does not close us off from life. It opens us to it. In this talk, we will explore the deeper meaning of letting go, not as a loss, but as a form of freedom. We will look at why holding on brings suffering, what it truly means to release our grip, and how this practice can transform not only our meditation but our relationships, our work, and our sense of self. And most importantly, we will see that letting go is not an act of rejection, but an act of love. Love for the truth, love for life, and love for the peace that comes when we stop trying to make the world obey our will. So as we begin, I invite you to pause for a moment. Take a breath, and notice if there is anything you are holding on to right now, not with your hands, but with your mind. It might be a thought, a memory, an expectation, or a fear. Feel its weight, and imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to set it down, not forever, not with force, but gently, as you would place a fragile object on a table. That small taste of release is the doorway to everything we will explore together. To understand why letting go is so powerful, we must first understand what it means to hold on. Holding on is not only about clinging to physical objects or people. It is a mental habit, a subtle tension in the heart and mind that can follow us through every moment of life. It can feel like a quiet, invisible weight, and yet it shapes the way we see the world and the way we suffer. We hold on to what is pleasant, hoping it will never change. We hold on to our ideas and opinions, believing they define who we are. We hold on to rules, traditions, and identities, thinking they give us stability. And most deeply, we hold on to the belief that there is a solid, unchanging me at the center of all experience, and that this me must be protected at all costs. When we cling in these ways, it is as if we are building a wall between ourselves and the flow of life. This wall is not made of bricks or stone. It is made of fear, desire, and misunderstanding. We fear losing what we love, so we try to trap it in our hands. We desire things to be a certain way, so we push away anything that threatens our comfort. And we misunderstand the nature of reality, thinking that if we try hard enough, we can make it stay the way we want. But life does not stay. People change. Circumstances shift. Even the thoughts and feelings within our own mind are constantly moving, arising and passing away like clouds drifting across the sky. The tragedy of holding on is that it often begins with love or hope. We hold on to someone because we care for them. We hold on to a dream because it inspires us. We hold on to an identity because it helps us feel safe. But over time, what began as love becomes possession, what began as hope becomes pressure, and what began as safety becomes a prison. We think we are protecting what is important, but in truth, we are suffocating it. Love turns into control. Ambition turns into anxiety. Self-respect turns into self-defense. Holding on is not only exhausting, it is painful. The mind that clings is always at war with reality, because reality is always changing. It is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes through your fingers. And yet we convince ourselves that if we just squeeze a little harder, we will be able to keep it. This is why so many people feel a constant undercurrent of stress, even when nothing bad is happening. The stress does not come from the outside world. It comes from the tension of trying to resist the natural flow of life. This habit of holding on runs deep because we believe that letting go means losing something essential. If we stop clinging to pleasures, we fear we will never feel joy again. If we stop clinging to our opinions, we fear we will have no voice. If we stop clinging to our identity, we fear we will disappear. In truth, it is not life that demands this tension. It is our own misunderstanding. We have mistaken the act of holding for the act of living. But life does not need to be held. It needs to be experienced. When we begin to see this clearly, something shifts inside us. We notice how often our thoughts return to the same worries and desires. We notice how tightly we try to control conversations, relationships, and outcomes. We notice how our body tenses when we think about losing something we value. This awareness is the first step toward freedom, because it shines a light on the cost of our clinging. Once we see that holding on does not actually protect us, but instead keeps us trapped in a cycle of tension and fear, we start to wonder if there might be another way to live. That wondering is the seed of letting go. It is not about rejecting the things we care about, but about relating to them in a new way. It is about opening the hand, loosening the grip, and trusting that what is meant to stay will stay, and what is meant to go will go. It is about realizing that the beauty of a flower lies in its fragility, not in its permanence. It is about discovering that the heart can be open without being chained, and that love can flow more freely when it is not bound by fear. Only by understanding the nature of holding on can we truly appreciate the freedom of release. One of the greatest misunderstandings about letting go is the belief that it means abandoning, giving up, or walking away from what we care about. This misunderstanding can make people resist the very practice that could bring them peace. When we hear the words, let go, we often imagine turning our back on someone we love, quitting a dream, or cutting ourselves off from the world. But the truth is very different. Letting go is not about removing ourselves from life. It is about meeting life without chains. It is not the closing of the heart, but the unbinding of it. When you abandon something, there is often a sense of rejection or avoidance. You may walk away because it feels too difficult, or because you no longer wish to face it. There can be a kind of coldness or indifference in abandonment, a withdrawal that creates distance. Letting go, on the other hand, is not cold at all. It can be deeply warm and compassionate. It is the decision to stop trying to control what cannot be controlled, to release the demand that life fit a certain image, and to allow things and people to be as they are. You can let go and still be fully present, still care deeply, still act when needed. Consider love. Many people confuse love with possession. They believe that if you love someone, you must hold on to them tightly, protect them from change, keep them exactly as they are. But true love has space in it. It allows the other person to grow, to change, even to leave if that is where their path leads. Letting go in love does not mean turning your back. It means removing your grip so that the relationship can breathe. It is the difference between holding a bird in your hand so tightly that you harm it, and holding it gently so that if it wishes to fly, it can do so without fear. The same is true for our work, our goals, and our dreams. Letting go does not mean you stop caring about your work or that you abandon your goals. It means you engage in them without the desperate need for a specific outcome. You still plant the seeds, water the soil, and tend the garden, but you do so with an open heart, knowing that the weather is beyond your control. When you abandon your work, you walk away from the field entirely. When you let go, you stay in the garden, but without clinging to the harvest. This difference changes everything. It transforms work from a constant source of stress into a living act of presence. There is also the matter of letting go in the face of loss. Many people think that letting go of grief means forgetting the person or the thing they have lost. They fear that if they release their tight hold on the pain, they will dishonor the memory. But grief and clinging are not the same. You can honor someone's memory without imprisoning yourself in sorrow. You can let go of the constant resistance to their absence while still keeping their love alive in your heart. Letting go here is the softening of the wound, the opening to life again. The choice to carry love without carrying the weight of endless struggle. We see the same principle in the life of great teachers and compassionate leaders. They may have to let go of personal comfort, familiar surroundings, or even people they deeply love, not because they reject them, but because they refuse to let attachment bind their heart. They remain fully engaged in the world, but they are free within themselves. This freedom allows them to serve without being controlled by fear or desire. The heart of letting go is trust. Trust that life will unfold as it must. Trust that you can meet whatever comes with presence and clarity. Trust that you do not need to grip everything in order to live fully. Abandonment is a closing off, a turning away from engagement. Letting go is the opposite. It is the opening that allows true engagement to happen without the constant shadow of fear. When we understand this difference, we stop resisting the practice. We see that letting go does not take us out of life. It puts us more deeply into it, with the freedom to love, to act, and to be at peace without the constant need to control. Letting go is not something that happens in a single moment, nor is it something we can force through willpower alone. It is a gradual unfolding, a process of seeing more clearly and softening our grip over time. The path to letting go begins with awareness. We cannot release what we do not first recognize we are holding. Often, our attachments are so familiar that we no longer notice them. They live quietly in the background of our lives, shaping our decisions, our moods, and our relationships. Awareness is like turning on a light in a dim room. Suddenly, we see the shapes of the things we have been stumbling around for years. When we begin to pay attention, we notice the small ways clinging shows itself, the way our mind replays conversations to defend our position, the way we tense when someone challenges our beliefs, the way we rush to fix problems that may not even be ours to solve. We notice the subtle knot in the chest when we think about the future and the heaviness in the heart when we revisit the past. Awareness does not yet require us to let go. It simply invites us to witness what is happening without turning away. This witnessing is the foundation. Without it, we are trying to let go blindly, without knowing what binds us. The next step on the path is understanding. We begin to see the nature of the things we cling to. We notice that they are not fixed, that they change whether we want them to or not. The people we love change, our bodies change, our moods change, even our sense of self shifts from day to day. When we see this clearly, we realize that our grip cannot make anything stay. This understanding does not always remove the desire to hold on, but it begins to weaken the illusion that clinging will protect us from change. We start to see that change is not a personal enemy, but the natural rhythm of life. As understanding deepens, we start to cultivate a gentle trust. Trust that life will move whether we push or pull. Trust that we can meet what comes without holding on to what has passed. This trust is not blind. It grows from seeing the way life has always carried us forward, even through pain, even through loss. We remember the times we thought we could not survive, yet here we are. This trust allows the hand to loosen just a little, enough for light to enter. In daily life, The path to letting go is built from small, deliberate moments. We pause before reacting. We notice when we are trying to control someone else's choices and step back. We give ourselves permission to rest from constant planning. We allow a conversation to unfold without steering it toward the ending we prefer. In meditation, we watch thoughts rise and fall without chasing them or pushing them away. We feel emotions move through the body without needing to name them as good or bad. Each small act of release is a step on the path. Compassion is also part of this journey. Compassion for others and for ourselves. We let go not by criticizing ourselves for holding on, but by understanding why we hold on in the first place. Most attachment is born from fear or love, and both are deeply human. To soften the grip, we must first soften the heart. When we see that even our clinging was an attempt to protect ourselves or to keep close what we love, we can release it without self-hatred. Compassion turns letting go from a battle into a surrender that feels natural. Over time, we discover that letting go is less about losing something and more about gaining space. Space in the mind, space in the heart, space to breathe. We realize we can still care deeply without being entangled. We can still act with commitment without being chained to the outcome. We can still remember the past without being trapped in it. We can still hope for the future without fearing it. And this is the quiet miracle of the path. The more we let go, the more present we become, and the more fully we can live each moment as it comes. When we speak about nourishment for the mind, we must go deeper than the surface-level idea of simply consuming uplifting content or avoiding harmful entertainment. True nourishment for the mind begins with an awareness of the environment we allow ourselves to live in, both internally and externally. Just as the body cannot remain healthy if fed only processed, unhealthy food, the mind cannot remain clear, stable, and awake if it is constantly fed confusion, conflict, and distraction. The first step in nourishing the mind is recognizing that every moment of perception is an act of feeding. What we hear, see, read, and think are all forms of mental nutrition. The stories we listen to, the company we keep, the conversations we engage in, the media we consume, all of these are meals for the mind. If we eat food laced with poison, the body becomes ill. If we consume thoughts laced with greed, hatred, or ignorance, the mind becomes clouded and restless. True nourishment is not just about adding positive things. It is about discerning what weakens the mind and gently removing it from our daily diet. This means choosing silence over unnecessary noise, choosing depth over shallow stimulation, and choosing truth over convenient illusions. Nourishment also involves deliberate intake of wisdom. This is why listening to teachings that awaken the mind, reflecting on truths that challenge our ego, and reading works that expand our perspective are so vital. Each of these acts is like offering the mind pure, clean water after a long time of drinking muddy liquid. It refreshes the inner landscape and allows clarity to emerge. A well-nourished mind becomes like a well-tended garden. When harmful weeds are removed and the soil is enriched with nutrients, seeds of understanding grow naturally. This nourishment doesn't force wisdom to appear. It simply creates the conditions where insight can arise without struggle. A nourished mind does not tire quickly when faced with difficulties. Instead, it meets them with a quiet, steady strength. This is because it has been fed a diet of truth, patience, and compassion, rather than a diet of fear, complaint, and constant craving. Importantly, nourishing the mind is not a one-time act. It is a way of living. Every day, we must choose what enters our mental space. Every day, we decide whether our mind will be fed food that strengthens clarity or food that feeds delusion. With consistency, these small choices build a mental resilience that no external chaos can shake. In time, we discover that the mind, when properly nourished, naturally inclines towards stillness, kindness, and wisdom, just as a healthy body naturally inclines toward balance and vitality. When we begin to see the intimate connection between our state of mind and the way we choose to live, a deeper dimension of practice opens up. Outer simplicity is not about stripping life of all beauty or comfort, nor is it about adopting a strict, joyless lifestyle. Rather, it is the natural result of inner clarity. When the mind is less clouded by craving and comparison, there is a shift in values. What once felt essential for our happiness begins to lose its pull. And what once went unnoticed, such as a quiet walk, a shared meal, or the sound of rain, becomes deeply fulfilling. This is not forced renunciation. It is a natural unfolding. When inner clarity arises, it leads to choices that bring less clutter, fewer unnecessary commitments, and more space for what truly nourishes us. Outer simplicity, in turn, supports inner clarity. When we intentionally reduce the number of distractions, possessions, and mental noise we expose ourselves to, we create an environment where attention can rest more easily. The mind has less to chase after, less to defend, and less to constantly manage. This doesn't mean we avoid life's responsibilities or withdraw entirely from the world. Instead, it means we engage with life in a more focused and intentional way. We give our energy to what matters and let go of the rest without regret. This mutual support between inner clarity and outer simplicity forms a kind of feedback loop. The more we let go inwardly, the more our external life reflects that peace. And the simpler our external life becomes, the more space the mind has to rest in clarity. Over time, this process reshapes our relationship to work, to money, to social expectations, and even to our own ambitions. We find that we no longer need to prove ourselves through constant productivity or material success, because the sense of worth we carry no longer depends on external validation. In this space, meditation deepens naturally. Without the constant pull of the next thing or the background hum of too many unfinished tasks, the mind is less agitated and more receptive. It becomes easier to stay present because we are not being pulled in 1,000 directions. The practice of mindfulness is no longer a compartmentalized exercise done for a few minutes a day. It becomes a living thread that weaves through our daily activities. Even washing the dishes or folding laundry can feel like an opportunity to return to stillness. Outer simplicity also fosters a greater sense of compassion and connection. As we consume less, we begin to notice how our choices affect others and the world around us. We may start to question habits of excess that rely on exploitation or waste, and instead choose actions that align with care and responsibility. This shift is not driven by guilt or moral pressure, but by a natural sensitivity that grows when the mind is less preoccupied with itself. Compassion becomes less of an abstract ideal and more of an everyday habit woven into our lifestyle. Ultimately, the interplay between inner clarity and outer simplicity is not about setting rigid rules for how to live. It is about alignment. It is about allowing our outer life to reflect the inner freedom we are cultivating and letting that outer environment nourish the clarity within. Over time, the boundaries between the practice and life dissolve. We are simply living, but living in a way where every choice, every interaction, and every moment is touched by a quiet, steady awareness. And in that awareness, we find a profound contentment that no possession, achievement, or approval can surpass. In the modern age, where technology shapes nearly every aspect of our lives, it is easy to forget that the mind, not the machine, is still the core driver of human destiny. Right livelihood in today's world requires us to re-examine the ways in which we earn, consume, and engage with society in light of the rapid changes happening around us. In ancient times, livelihood was often directly connected to physical labor, craftsmanship, or trade. But now many of us live in a world of screens, digital transactions, and global markets. This shift creates new challenges for living in alignment with the principles of right livelihood, but also new opportunities for practicing wisdom and compassion in daily work. It begins with the recognition that every profession, whether in technology, education, healthcare, business, or the arts, carries the potential to either nurture life or harm it. The tools may be different from the past, but the ethical responsibility remains the same. A programmer designing software must consider whether the product promotes connection or addiction. A business owner must decide whether their supply chain is built on fairness or exploitation. A content creator must reflect on whether their work promotes truth or feeds ignorance. In this way, right livelihood becomes less about the type of job you do and more about the intention and consequences of your actions. Furthermore, the digital economy has blurred the lines between personal life and work life, making it even more important to cultivate mindfulness in professional choices. Working remotely can offer freedom, but it can also breed isolation. The ability to sell products worldwide can lead to prosperity, but it can also enable exploitation in unseen corners of the globe. Mindful awareness of these dynamics allows us to take responsibility for the unseen effects of our work. Just as a stone dropped into a pond creates ripples far beyond the point of impact, our livelihood choices send waves into the broader world, touching people we may never meet. In this interconnected reality, the principle of right livelihood asks us to expand our moral vision beyond immediate benefits to long-term impact. This means asking questions like, does my work contribute to peace or to conflict? Does it uplift human dignity or degrade it? Does it align with my deepest values? Or do I compromise those values for the sake of convenience or profit? Right livelihood in the modern context is not a static rulebook, but an ongoing process of reflection and alignment. It invites us to see work as a form of practice, where every decision, big or small, becomes an opportunity to cultivate compassion, integrity, and wisdom. It also challenges the modern myth that success is measured solely by income or status. True success, in this light, is the ability to sustain oneself and one's family without causing harm, while also contributing something meaningful to the world. This can take many forms. A doctor treating patients with empathy, an engineer designing sustainable solutions, a teacher inspiring students to think critically, or even a farmer choosing organic methods that protect the soil for future generations. Each of these is a path of livelihood grounded in respect for life. At the same time, we must acknowledge the complexities of modern life. Very few professions are completely free from indirect harm. Our devices contain minerals mined in difficult conditions. Our clothing may have passed through exploitative labor systems. Our food may come from farms that harm the environment. Right livelihood does not demand perfection, but it does require awareness and the willingness to make better choices when possible. This awareness transforms livelihood from a mechanical pursuit of money into a conscious expression of our values. Even small steps, choosing suppliers who treat workers fairly, reducing waste in production, offering genuine value instead of manipulation, can shift the ethical quality of our work. In the end, the essence of right livelihood in the modern world is about living and working in such a way that we can look back at our life's efforts and know they were not only profitable, but also kind, responsible, and wise. In the end, the journey of living rightly and feeding both the body and the mind rightly is not a rigid formula, but a living practice that matures through direct experience. When we look deeply, we see that right livelihood is not merely about avoiding harmful professions. It is about the daily choices that shape the quality of our inner world. Every coin we earn carries the energy of how it was obtained, and every morsel of food or piece of knowledge we consume carries the seeds of how it will influence our future. If we nourish the body with excess, with wastefulness, or with indulgence in things that dull the mind, we create heaviness and stagnation within ourselves. If we nourish the mind with gossip, anger, or shallow distractions, we make it restless and fragile. But when we choose to feed the body with what is sufficient, clean, and life-supporting, we give ourselves the vitality to walk the path with stability. When we choose to feed the mind with truth, silence, and reflection, we give it the clarity to see reality as it is. A person who lives in alignment with right livelihood will naturally find that their work becomes a form of practice, their meals become moments of gratitude, and their interactions become opportunities to strengthen compassion. Over time, such a life becomes light, unburdened by regrets, and filled with quiet joy. This is not the joy that depends on possessions or praise, but the joy of knowing that one's existence leaves no deep scars on the earth or on the hearts of others. It is the deep satisfaction of knowing that the body is cared for without greed, the mind is nourished without deception, and life itself is sustained without harm. Such a way of living becomes a bridge to greater spiritual maturity, because it frees us from the chains of constant craving and fear. When we do not depend on harmful gains, we are not afraid to lose them. When we do not cling to unhealthy food for the body or unhealthy stories for the mind, we are not enslaved by them. we begin to taste the freedom that is at the heart of all spiritual practice. The freedom to stand on the ground of what is wholesome, to act without hidden compromise, and to live without leaving behind the weight of harm. Right livelihood, in its fullest sense, is not just a moral guideline. It is a living expression of wisdom, a way of walking gently in the world while nourishing both body and mind with purity, balance, and love.